Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Craig DeLuz with Firearms Policy Coalition, and we're talking with you on Giving Tuesday, sharing with you some examples of the type of work that we do, letting you know exactly where your donation will be going to, well as Facebook's donation, because that's part of this whole thing. We're trying to get you to donate because we want Facebook to actually donate today on Giving Tuesday. So today we're going to talk about something that that CGF did, the California Gun Rights Foundation did. It was an effort to defend an individual who, you know what? In fact, I'm going to let Mr. Arnold Chin share his story with you so that you can get an idea of the kind of work that we do here with CGF. Arnold, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
All right, sir. Every time I hear your story, it gives me chills. So I just go ahead and start from the top and let folks know what happened.
Sure. So a couple of years ago, I became a federal firearms licensee. Just with my involvement in firearms, I'm a USPSA shooter. I'm a match director, and I also photograph products. And so having an FFL enabled me to photograph products for some of the companies that I shoot for or were sponsored by at the time. So during that time, I was facilitating a transfer for somebody. And I had a question because I was a new FFL, a question about doing some of the paperwork with California Department of Justice. So when I called them, they said, hey, what kind of rifle is it? And it was a SIG MPX, which is a 9mm carbine. And a lot of the evil features had been mitigated. So they asked me to send them some photographs, which I was happy to accommodate. I did that. And then all of a sudden, maybe a couple months later, I got a surprise unannounced visit to my office. I was not there at the time. My office staff was. They said, hey, Department of Justice is here. And they said they just happened to be in the area. Like, how often does that happen? And they wanted to verify some markings on the rifle. Well, I didn't have anything to hide. I didn't think that anything I was doing was illegal, immoral, or unethical. So I set up an appointment with the agent, and he came back the next day. So we take the rifle out of the safe, and they're looking at this. And basically, they are trying to make a case for possession of an assault weapon. So there were a lot of...
Wait, before we go on, let's just be real clear. Number one, you're an FFL.
Yes.
And you're a competitive shooter. So it's safe enough to say you have a decent knowledge of firearms.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm also a former police officer, and I'm a law-abiding citizen.
There you go. Okay. So there's that. And as a part of being a law-abiding citizen, you have a question, and you want to make sure that you're in compliance with the law.
100%.
And they ask you to send photos, which you're like, I have nothing to hide because guess what? It's not my intention to break the law. And so then they send agents out who basically their goal seems to be to show that you are breaking the law.
Absolutely. And one of the things that people don't really understand is this isn't some guy coming by in a shirt and tie with a badge on his belt and a gun in his holster that's, concealed. There were 4 agents that came out. They're wearing raid gear, body armor, tasers, body cams, the whole shebang, and they made quite the spectacle of it. Granted, they were professional in their approach, but again, there was no reason to have 4 agents in my place. Fortunately, I have a lot of law enforcement customers, so it really wasn't anything out of the ordinary. So going into the SIG MPX, at issue was they wanted to inspect the grip, what they thought was a pistol grip. The grip that was on the rifle was a swivel grip that can be where you can hit a button to deactivate the lock and lock it into the upright position, so it is no longer considered a pistol grip. So that was already in the locked position, and it was epoxied in place. The second thing was they said, well, it had a collapsible stock. The stock was pinned in place with a screw and a set screw behind it, so it was definitely locked in place. The third thing that came up as a quick question was it had a bullet button. They said, well, bullet button firearms are no longer legal in California at the time. But that was a moot point because it didn't have any of the evil features. And last but not least, they looked at the muzzle device. In their opinion, the muzzle device was a flash hider. Mind you, this is a 9mm There was no legal definition of a flash hider. It was opined by their in-house expert that it had certain cosmetic characteristics that made it a flash hider, that he opined that it was a flash hider. No test was done. Not a single round was fired. They didn't do anything to check to see if flash was actually suppressed. And they wrote up that case and sent it to the DA.
And they confiscated. When they confiscated it, they told you they were taking it to get it tested, right?
They told us they're going to take it for testing to see if it functions as a flash hider. And see, here's the crazy thing. While one agent is looking at it, the other one is on their phone looking at SIG's website, and also at the same time on the other agent's phone talking to their supervisor in Sacramento to get some guidance on this. SIG's website clearly shows that the device that's on there was a muzzle device to reduce the signature of the rifle, because it was a 14.5-inch barrel and the muzzle device is pinned and welded on there. It doesn't function as a flash hider. It's not marketed as a flash hider. In fact, I even mentioned to them at the time, SIG's website does not show this as being one of their flash hiders. They have a separate section on their website for flash hiders. This was not one of them. So they confiscated it, and then pretty much I'm like, well, okay, I'm not too sure what to do about this. And a few other people who are a little more experienced than I was says, you better contact an attorney and retain an attorney on this. And that's when I had contacted Adam Richards, who came highly recommended, and the wheels started turning from there. Most importantly, we hear about these cases, we hear about the circumstances of them, and people make their assumptions. Make no mistake that the punishment isn't whether or not you get prosecuted. The real punishment here, besides the money you have to outlay to defend your freedom, so you're not in jail, is you're going to be going through a tremendous amount of stress, anxiety, wondering, my gosh, am I going to have to serve time in jail? Am I going to be ostracized by, professionally by my colleagues? How is this going to pan out? Because, not all my friends necessarily are Second Amendment people, but I still respect them just the same. So that whole process went forward, and thankfully, I had a really strong advocate in Adam Richards. He really went to bat. He very clearly explained what was going on and the whole process. He also went so far as to say, okay, well, this is what the government is offering for a resolution. What they wanted to do is they wanted to initially offer what's called a deferred entry of judgment, or a DEJ. So what that essentially is that you say, okay, I plead guilty to the charge, but I'll be on DA probation, which is not a legal term, but it's kind of a functional way of saying, well, if you keep your nose clean for the next year or two, then we'll go ahead and dismiss the case.
Super secret probation.
Yes. DEJs are nothing new.
Right.
I've seen them before. It's nothing new. But again, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you're an FFL, okay, and you're a competitive shooter, by pleading to a DEJ, even though the case gets dismissed at the end of whatever that period is, you still have a conviction on your record. Not really conviction, but it still shows you pled guilty,
right,
to this crime. So when you look at your federal rap sheet will show that you entered a guilty plea. So how does that translate to me? Well, what if later on I want to apply to some program or some licensure that requires some type of a background check? It's going to show that I applied to a misdemeanor weapons charge, even though there's no conviction. So I said, no, that's just not going to happen. And Adam said, well, that's probably a good way to go. And we went through the steps that he had outlined, and the case was subsequently dismissed in the interest of justice. Okay, so the compelling part on this whole case, besides don't have this attitude like it won't happen here, it won't happen to me, it did happen here, and it did happen to me, and I would have been the furthest person that it would have happened to. But when I was going through this case, being a new FFL, it's not like I had a lot of money stocked up. I don't spend money lavishly on extraneous things. Well, I had enough money for my retainer and maybe a few hours of representation. And when I was kind of in that bind where this is going to go a little bit further to have to defend myself on this charge and eventually the DEJ and everything, Adam Richards and the California Gun Rights Foundation collaborated And CGF basically helped fund the remainder of my defense in this. Now that may sound like, oh, what do you do? It's a piddly case. This isn't going to the Supreme Court. But let me tell you, if you are a parent and you are a business owner and you are in the position that I'm in, just being a law-abiding citizen, trying to do the right thing, and this is coming down, every little bit helps. And the importance of donating to a organization like this. I was donating beforehand, not thinking that it was going to eventually come back to me. I did it because I supported the mission. And now I've been a benefactor of that mission, and I fully support, making donations to it in the future.
Well, it's important, though, to understand that, I mean, especially in a day and age where literally they just had thousands of individuals register, quote unquote, the new definition of assault weapons and required you to send pictures into the Department of Justice. Now, what that means is that yours is not the first place that is probably going to get a visit from the California Department of Justice. And in this particular case, the concern is over quite frankly, over an ambiguous issue such as a muzzle device. Absolutely no basis in anything. They say this is a flash suppressor or a flash hider.
Let me take that a step further, because after the case was over, I actually read the report that they filed with the district attorney. And by the way, that's San Joaquin County District Attorney. So anyways, in reading the report, they basically tried to paint the picture that full on I had a complete assault weapon. So let's talk about the pistol grip I talked about that swiveled into place. In the report, it says we were able to push the grip down with minimal force, and we noted epoxy, a cracked epoxy came out from the grip. Okay, well, first off, epoxy coming out shows that I never had it in the down position.
It meant you broke it, is what it meant.
That's right. But they created that condition, right? Uh-huh. Okay, I didn't create that condition. It was in the up position. It was always in the up position. It was epoxied in the up position, and they went ahead and forced it down. And then seeing the epoxy coming out, which they noted, proves the point. It was never in the down position to begin with, so I was compliant, and you created that condition. So the second thing was the stock. So they say, well, it has a collapsible stock on it, which is one of the evil features. Well, yeah, it was collapsible when you took the set screw out, and then you took the actual pin screw out and took it apart and took the apparatus apart. Sure, you can make that a collapsible stock. Well, hell, by that same logic, you can take a semi-automatic weapon, take it apart, change something out, and make it full auto, right? So again, for the collapsible stock, they created that condition.
Right.
And the third thing with the muzzle device, I'm not going to call it a flash hider because it wasn't a flash hider. It was never proven that. Mm-hmm. But as a muzzle device, they did absolutely no testing on that, and it was their opinion it was a flash hider. It reminds me of back when I was in college taking a constitutional law class. What's the definition of pornography? Well, there's no definition. We just know it when we see it.
We just know it when we see it. And folks, look, this is the sort of stuff that we're dealing with the California Department of Justice. And that's why it's vitally important that when cases like this come up, that we have the resources, that the California Gun Rights Foundation has the resources to be able to support you and to be able to support individuals like Arnold. And the only way we're able to do that is with your support.
Absolutely. And a lot of people in the shooting community know me as a match director and a shooter, and of course an FFL. But by the same token, if it can happen to me up here in little Stockton, California, it can happen anywhere in the state. And like we had talked before, one of my friends, her husband is going through a similar circumstance, and of course has Adam Richards as his attorney. And also I've talked to other people, oddly enough, that have had their run-ins with Department of Justice, which I think is kind of odd, because how often do you see Department of Justice around here versus the local police department? And I'm thinking, why are we not going after the felons? Why are we not going after, all the people who shouldn't be in possession of these? Don't go after the people who are openly admitting, saying they want to follow the law. That's ridiculous.
Exactly. Well, Arnold, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story. Folks, we need your support. We need you to help us, help folks like Arnold, to fight back against what is, in essence, the California Department of Justice's effort to take away your fundamental right to keep and bear arms. How can you help? By making a donation. If you're watching this video on Facebook, all you got to do is click on the donate button. If you're watching it on YouTube, then all you need to do is follow the link in the description of this video. It'll take you to Facebook. Click on the donate button, and bam, you are there. And not only that, but your donation will be matched by one from the by dollar for dollar by a donation from Facebook. So help us do that. Help us celebrate Giving Tuesday by standing up for our fundamental right to keep and bear arms. Arnold, once again, thank you for coming on the program. Everybody, thank you for watching, and we'll be back with more stories and more opportunities for you to support your right to keep and bear arms. You guys take care.